Hello, friends!
Greetings and salutations!
Welcome to the Grand Misadventure. Today we'll be filling your heads with the knowledge you never asked for. Welcome to Historically Inaccurate.
In this series, we'll be looking at various phrases and idioms. First, we'll provide you with an in-depth historical context that developed the given phrase.
Before blowing your mind on what these phrases actually mean. It's the secret history nobody wants you to know. To kick things off, let's talk about Hobson's choice.
The phrase Hobson's choice needs to be given a choice with only one option. A more modern interpretation is take it or leave it. But where does this phrase come from? Who the heck is Hobson? And why was he given a choice?
Mr. Thomas Hobson, not to be confused with the actor Thomas Hobson, was an English Tudor businessman born January 4th, 1544, in Stratford-upon-Avon in the Kingdom of England. Back in those days, equestrian endeavors was a preferred method of travel and entertainment. It wasn't uncommon for somebody to rent a horse, like how we rent cars or go go-karting.
In addition to continuing his work as a carrier until the plague of 1625 caused him to stop operations, Hobson set up a livery stable, incidentally named Hobson's Livery Stable. He kept everything from the boots to the bridles available for rent with his horses and developed a historically successful business. He left quite an impression on his clientele with his unique business practices.
Hobson adored his nearly 40 horses that were part of his livery. He desired to provide them with the best care he could within his business, so he enforced a strict rotation. The most recently ridden or spent horses were kept in the far back stalls, allowing them plenty of time to rest and recover. The most rested horses were kept up at the very front. Whenever somebody would come in to rent a horse, Hobson would take them to the first stall and offer only that horse. He wouldn't allow any other horse to be considered, and if somebody wanted a different horse other than the one he offered, Hobson would refuse to rent. The customer had to take Hobson's choice, or none at all. Thus, the phrase, Hobson's choice, was forever cemented into history.
The phrase began circulating and gained popularity after Hobson's death in 1631. One of the earliest examples of its use can be found in Samuel Fisher's The Rustic's Alarm to the Rabbis, published in 1660, and I quote, "If in this case there be no other, as the proverb is, than Hobson's choice, which is, choose whether you will have this or none." And that was the history of Hobson's choice. Do you feel educated? Great. Now throw all that away because we're about to tell you the real story behind Hobson's choice.
A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away revolved the planet Ceratulus Apparatus, an innovative, cyberkinetic planet full of robots of every shape and size. One of the most well-respected robots on the planet was the inventor extraordinaire Hob. Hob made his name and fortune from developing a self-sustaining power cell to drastically increase the lifespan and quality of life of his robotic brethren. He was praised across the planet for his discovery and was awarded the Ceratulus Amazingus, the highest honor any robot could receive. He was super famous and important and amazing, and everybody loved him. You must be saying to yourself, clearly, there is no one more important or famous than an alien robot named Hob. And you'd be right. But we're not here to talk about Hob or his inventions or his fame or his fortune. We are here to talk about his son, Bluth.
Bluth, an absolutely average robot, completely ordinary in every conceivable way. That is, if you think heinous villainy is ordinary, all trembled before him. He was an unsuspecting type of dastardly robot that if he were to offer you a chocolate chip cookie, you would happily accept. After all, cookies are a proper way to greet your friends. And then he would stare at you with his beady little eyes, waiting for you to take the first bite, which kind of creeps you out, so you feel pressured to take a bite. But it's probably fine because it's just a cookie, so you start having an existential crisis about the meaning of cookies and our place in the universe, and while lost in thought, you take a bite of the cookie, and then all of a sudden, psych! That chocolate chip cookie is actually oatmeal raisin. Oh, the robotic humanity!
As you can probably guess, you intrepid, intelligent viewer, Hob was entirely unenthused by his son's lifestyle choices. Like any good parent, Hob had hopes, dreams, and aspirations for his sprightly son, which were dashed the moment Bluth decided to befriend his levitating, footless elementary school principal with the sole intention to steal his left shoes. That went about as well as you expected. Bluth's unsightly villainy of mild inconveniences was simply too great a threat to the robotic community at large, and must be dealt with in the most efficient and straightforward way possible. A moral dilemma with infinite subjective answers.
It was Cogsuary 11th, that fateful day that always do right Hob decided to, quote, put the mechanical boot down. He set up 2 buttons in his home laboratory that Bluth lived beneath in the basement. They were big, bold, red, and enticing, with flashy, can't-miss-em neon signs. The first of the 2 buttons said quite plainly, "Do not push, Bluth, this means you," and the other cheerfully noted, "Push for some cookies," with a little heart. The stage was set, and now all Hob needed to do was to summon his do-no-good son. So, with all the mechanical might he could muster, Hob loudly declared, "Bluth, I'm leaving, and definitely didn't leave any suspicious buttons in my lab that's conveniently unlocked that would most certainly cause mayhem." And then, with his trap placed, Hob left the building and waited for nature to take its course.
Bluth waited to hear the door not so subtly slam, before bounding from the basement with all the grace and might of a steam-powered bull in a cog shop. He floundered up the stairs and beheld the buttons in all their glory. The glow from the buttons reflected in his eyes. Bluth paused for a moment, considering each button in turn. On one spring-loaded hand, ultimate power and free tickets to RivetCon featuring his childhood idols, the trifecta of villainy, Star Destroyer, Mega Ooze, and Tim. On the other hand, freshly made cookies. He, Hobson, must make a choice. A choice that would define him and his sons and his sons' sons and his sons' sons' sons and basically his entire family for all of eternity. With the weight of the world on his shoulders, Bluth took destiny into his own hands. And then he chucked destiny out the window into a pit of mud, slamming the do not push button faster than you can say science us, with absolutely no reservations about the consequences of his actions whatsoever.
At first, there was silence. Is this what ultimate power felt like? A lower decibel level? And then, the theme song of the trifecta of villainy started blaring from the surround sound speakers of the lab. The holodeck table in the middle of the lab blazed with colors as Star Destroyer thundered, "Are you ready to rumble?" And Bluth dashed away from the buttons towards the partying call of his idols with dance moves that even villains would be ashamed of, when suddenly a record scratch halted the full theatrics. Gone were the ominous colors, and in their place, a single flickering image that could have been 1080p but was auto-scaling to 720 so it looked really grainy, but the holographic image was his father, phased onto a screen in front of him, staring into Bluth's photoreceptors. Hob was silent. He looked at his son mid-shindig and shook his head disapprovingly, a shot in the heart circuits for any life form.
The echoing sigh of disappointment rang in Bluth's long-term memory. Yet, it was that haunting sigh that triggered a software update within him. After baking apology cookies with his father, Bluth realized that the answer to his fulfillment in life was not the great, diabolical schemes, minor inconveniences, but in listening to what others had to share over a plate of freshly baked cookies. He was able to transform his basement scheming lair into the greatest cookie bakery known to robot kind, specializing in chocolate chip cookies with real chocolate chips and swearing off raisins for all eternity. He forever offered the harrowing tale of his dastardly deeds to all who seemed a bit impatient and demanded to see a manager. You can't rush perfect cookies.
And that is the secret history behind Hobson's choice.
Thanks for joining us on this informative adventure. If you'd like to see more historically inaccurate origins of phrases, give this video a cookie in the form of a like.
And subscribe to the Grand Misadventure for more nonsense.
And remember, The Misadventurer's Guide, Chapter 7978, Section F, page 42 and a half, states, "Cookies are a universal language, and never make a Hobson's choice." Until next time, friends.
Have a grand rest of your day.
Bye!